Continentals to Geek Salad's Retro Movie Reviews from the Geek Salad Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Mike.
And tonight we are continuing our look at the Best Picture winners through the ages, through the decades. And we are actually landing on, I think, the oldest film we have ever reviewed in the 6+ years that we have been doing retro movie reviews.
Possibly even the oldest film I've ever seen.
I've definitely seen older. I've definitely seen older because I've seen Metropolis and I've seen Calgary and all that.
Oh, no, yeah, I've seen I think I saw the silent version of the Hitchcock. What's that one they did? The guest?
Maybe. Sorry, I don't know. Sorry, I'm also yawning. Yeah. And we are, of course, talking, because you already clicked on it, Grand Hotel from 1932. Yeah. Interesting Oscar trivia about this movie is that it is the only movie to win Best Picture that was nominated for no other Academy Awards.
Yeah, which I'm kind of surprised because, I honestly, if I would have at least given John and Lionel Barrymore's nominations.
Yeah, I don't. It's an interesting thing here because this was, this was kind of an interesting year to begin with. I'm pulling up like the actual nominees and stuff now, just so you have an idea, because several movies were only nominated for Best Picture were only nominated for Best Picture. This is also before they had the limit to 5.
Oh yeah,
which obviously since has been changed. I mean, it beat out movies like Aerosmith, Bad Girl, The Champ, 5-Star Final, 1 Hour with You, Shanghai Express, and The Smiling Lieutenant.
I think I might have heard of one of those.
I had heard of none of these. No, I've heard of The Champ because it was remade back in the late 70s with Ricky Schroeder and John Voight.
I knew about that one. I didn't realize it was a remake.
Interestingly, too, that this is the first year that there was a tie in the acting categories.
Really?
Best Actor went to both Frederick March for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Wallace Beery in The Champ. Wallace Beery, who was also in Grand Hotel.
Yeah. So
it's just, I think that the thing with this movie, first of all, there was no supporting. I'm going to double check that real quick before I open my big yap. But I am fairly certain that there was actually no supporting. There was no supporting category at this point.
Oh wow! Okay,
so that's the other thing is that this movie does not have a lead. Grand Hotel does not have a lead performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think John Barrymore's Baron is possibly the closest thing it's got, but
he's the closest thing to a central linchpin of the movie.
Yeah,
but the action doesn't 100% hinge on what he does. What I found interesting is that Greta Garbo, who got top billing in this movie, is actually very much a supporting player in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joan Crawford has more to do in this movie than she does.
You're not wrong.
No.
This movie is very interesting because it's really just kind of like a series of vignettes that kind of like the Baron kind of sort of links together, and like a few of them kind of come together at the end, but not all of them.
No, exactly. So I mean, Greta Garbo is kind of like what's his name in Mitchell? Like you start asking yourself,
oh yeah,
wait, wasn't Greta Garbo in this movie?
John Saxon. Yeah,
wasn't John Saxon in this movie? But yeah, Garbo is barely in this movie. It really hinges upon the the two Barrymores, John and Lionel, Joan Crawford, and Wallace Beery.
Yeah. Although I will say, in its credit, whenever you start to think, wait, wasn't Greta Garbo in there? You get a scene with Greta Garbo.
Yeah.
So she's not into much, but whenever like they keep going back to her like every like maybe 15 minutes, half hour or so. Just
Yeah.
kind of remind you, hey, she's in here. She's still playing a part.
Yep. I mean, honestly, I mean the stars of this movie are Joan Crawford and Lionel Barrymore. I feel like
Yeah.
both their characters are honestly they're the best written out of all of them, especially Lionel Barrymore's Kringlin.
He was amazing in this movie.
He was really good, and you would never know looking that 10 years later he would play Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life. You would never know by looking at. I mean, he was very much a chameleon at the time, and I don't know how much that had to do with like heavy drinking or anything. But
I mean, just looking at him, and then you like look at a picture of Mr. Potter, and you're like, that's the same guy.
Yeah,
it's kind of like when you put Spinal Tap and Princess Bride, Christopher Guest.
Christopher Guest, yeah.
Yeah, his character from Princess Bride versus his character from Spinal Tap. Put them side by side, and like,
is that the same guy? Yeah.
I didn't realize it was the same guy.
Yeah. What's interesting about this movie is I feel like it's lasting innovation. Its legacy in and of itself ain't great because it's not. It's a piece of trivia.
Yeah.
What is the only Academy Award Best Picture to be nominated for nothing else? Yeah. Answer: Grand Hotel. I feel like in terms of Hollywood innovations, the only thing this really did was really have like an all-star cast and with legitimate all-star people. I mean, considering, you know, like I said earlier, Wallace Beery won the damn Oscar for best actor that year for another movie, but for that year. So he had a presence about him.
And yeah, I know this was kind of the start of John Barrymore's kind of decline, but he is just so darn charming in this movie.
He is, and he's kind of more of a forebearer to people like William Powell, and then, you know, going forward, your Cary Grants, your you know, those types of people.
Actually, you know what? I could see Clark Gable as kind of an heir to John Barrymore.
Right, and this was before not going my way. It happened one night.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, this is very much the forebear where he had this. Now, yeah, and to your point, that career went downhill pretty soon after. I mean, the Barrymores in and of themselves were just like a family of functional alcoholics. It was, and that's the thing too. When Drew Barrymore was kind of, you know, fessing up to all of her substance issues, she was like, this is kind of the Barrymore curse.
Yeah. Although, did Lionel Barrymore do much drinking?
I'm sure they all did.
Because I know
to see what he died. I'm looking right now to see what he died of.
Yeah, I believe John died he died not from alcoholism, but I believe alcoholism definitely contributed to it.
Yeah. So Lionel Barrymore lived an additional 20. He died of a heart attack. I did not realize he actually won an Oscar. Oh, A Free Soul in 1931, the year before this movie came out. I did not know that.
And I guess like, this was also the very first movie that John and Lionel both appeared together.
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, that was kind of a coup to begin with.
Yeah, and it definitely helped because the chemistry of Creekling and the Baron was off the charts. They were so good together.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. John Barrymore would be dead within a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pneumonia and cirrhosis.
Actually, I think William Beery or Walter Beery?
Wallace Beery. I'm looking right now because a lot of these people did not 1949, about 17 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of
the one person that lived the longest, I think, out of this entire cast was Greta Garbo.
Yeah, Greta Garbo died in 1990.
99 actually.
Was it 99? I thought
Oh,
Greta Garbo
no,
died.
no. You're right. You're right. You're right. 90. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not. I remember when she died because at that point she was a complete recluse.
Yeah.
But like Joan Crawford, what's interesting to me about seeing Joan Crawford in this movie is that it's not the Joan Crawford that we've kind of,
Yeah.
I don't want to say grown up with, because you probably could name on one hand how many Joan Crawford movies you've really seen, right?
Yeah. Honestly, until this movie, the only Joan Crawford I knew about was No Wire Hangers.
Oh yeah, which isn't even a Joan Crawford movie.
Yeah.
In
It's
fact,
about her.
Be Kind Rewind has a really great thing about Faye Dunaway and the legend of Joan Crawford. Because the thing is with Joan Crawford, you don't, the way she put it was really good. It was like, you don't see drag queens going in and doing a scene from Grand Hotel. They all do the No More Wire Hangers scene because Mommy Dearest is camp.
Yeah.
It is a camp interpretation of what we think Joan Crawford is. Now, keep in mind, Joan Crawford was very much an overdramatic actress. You know, she would also win an Oscar like 10 years later.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say about her performance in this one, she was really good in this. And
she's excellent.
She was very almost understated.
Well, at this point, I mean, she was just a contract player for MGM.
Yeah.
I think John Barrymore actually signed a 4-picture deal with MGM solely so he could work with Greta Garbo.
Makes sense.
I think that was another thing too, because she was one of the biggest stars in the world at that point.
Yeah.
Where this movie loses me, though, in terms of, and part of it can be blamed just on, you know, what we've had in the 92 subsequent years since. This was 92 years. 92 years of storytelling, 92 years of film enhancements. Yeah. That it's still very actory. It's still being performed by people who, for the most part, probably did their first movies in the silent films.
Yeah.
And that was a big issue with a lot of actors that couldn't get over it. That's why dialogue seems so stagey.
Yeah.
And, you know, for lack of better terms, hammy.
Yeah, although you know what, I will say this one, because I've seen older movies where it is much, they project everything. It's much more over dramatic.
Yeah.
This one, like people like John Barrymore and Joan Crawford, I thought they were played it very much more understated than I was expecting. I mean,
right. And I think Lionel Barrymore, again, the Barrymores came from the stage also. That's the other thing to remember. They weren't just movie stars.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got that. If you came from the stage, you're going to have more of an ability to have that nuance and everything. You know, for any of the other supporting characters in this, though, it's a lot of 30s film.
I mean, you need a great example for that. Just look at the last 3 or 4 minutes of the movie, those honeymooners that come in.
Oh my God. And that's the thing too, is that, you know, and it's like cameras are rolling, got to show them completely getting in there or doing all that stuff.
Yeah, they pull up in the car with the big old goggles on because there's no windshield.
Yep. Well, and that's the other thing too. What's crazy to me about this is that, first of all, this is pre-war Berlin.
Yeah.
So when you put
that threw me off big time.
In that context, pre-war Berlin in 1932, this is a contemporary movie.
Yeah.
That takes place when it was filmed.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me that this is pre-rise of the Nazis.
Yeah.
And it's because it was the artistic and like well-to-do hotspot.
Yeah.
You know, we think about that. I've heard lots of podcasts about like the Weimar area that was big for the middle class and for, all the other crazy people out there. But it's it was really interesting to put yourself in that context again with 90 years of history and foresight.
Yeah.
So I guess the big question is, scale of 1 to 5, how do you rank this one? Because I feel like it's tough when we don't have a lot. We haven't reviewed enough of its own contemporaries to really compare it to other things. Again, a couple years later we got it. It Happened One Night, which is, I think, transcends what was being put out from that moment prior.
Yeah, It Happened
including
One Night
this
is so good. That's one I would probably go back to watch.
Yeah.
This one, actually, I would go back to rewatch this one. Not as much as It Happened One Night, but
yeah,
I enjoyed this one more than I thought I would. I mean, I really do appreciate some of that old school, like, I'm Three Stooges guy. So like the old school Hollywood doesn't throw me off the way it does some other people.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big film buff, so this is old school for you too.
Right. And there's certain areas where you could definitely tell it's like, okay, they had to do another shot because something got screwed up. That's why, like, when you see them like in a long shot and all of a sudden it cuts to a close up, it's not because that close up was meant to happen, or in a lot of cases when you notice that there's a definitive cut.
Yeah.
Like going from a tracking shot or going from one long shot to another long shot, there was a cut in there because something happened.
There was, I feel like, shots of like the camera is like up at the top and you can see the entire lobby in the circle. I thought those shots were fantastic.
Those were really nice.
I didn't expect those.
Yeah, even the exterior shot of the Baron kind of doing like the flippy flips.
Yeah.
That was really, again, for the time, was really interesting considering that they never truly take you outside of the building.
Yeah, the closest thing you get is you get that one shot at the end of the loading dock when they bring the Baron out.
Yeah.
And then you get that just the like 8 feet of street right in front of the hotel.
Exactly. I mean, the Grand Hotel in and of itself is the star of this movie.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Now, in terms of how I would rate this, though, it's one of those movies I appreciate. I appreciate it's part in Hollywood history.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when this movie is dull as dishwater, and a lot of it's because there are very long periods where they're talking, but it's kind of hard to comprehend what they're talking about, and then eventually you'll begin pulling little pieces of that throughout.
Yeah. I find that mainly in like the first maybe half hour of the movie or so.
Yeah. So like all of Kringle's issues with pricing with Wallace Beery's character.
Yeah.
They kind of came out at the end of sentences.
Yeah.
Like all of his issues came that way. But there is an expansive paragraphs of dialogue in between. And again, that is a product of this era of filmmaking.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I have to like it. This is one of those movies maybe I'll revisit again if I decide that, like, I'm going to do, maybe for the 100th anniversary of the Oscars, I'll watch all 100 Best Picture winners or something like that. And it'll come back then. Scale of 1 to 5, I think I'd give this a 3.
I would actually probably give it a 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are things I like about the movie, but it would be hard for me to, other than somebody who just wants to watch older film, it would be very hard for me to recommend this movie.
Yeah.
The way I can a more modern film. And I feel like when you're talking about older movies, there has to be, you have to sell the sizzle. And this movie is, it's a very well-made movie. I didn't have I didn't really have a problem with anybody in it. I didn't roll my eyes at any point. Even though I just want to know what happened to that dog.
Yeah, that hell, the Jenna even swept him at the end. I was like, dude, that was rude.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're an orphan now, out in the streets of Germany. Go to beer hall now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the first, like maybe 40 minutes of the movie or so, it definitely took a while for everything to kind of get together for me. But once everything kind of started to click for me, I it might have been when the Baron was caught by Grusinkia.
Yeah.
Or Grusinskaya, the name.
Yeah.
Names.
Greta Garbo. It's just Garbo.
Greta Garbo. When Greta Garbo caught the Baron stealing from her.
Yeah.
But then they start connecting. Like in the morning when she's just like kind of like happy as all get out. I'm like, okay, I think this movie's kind of got me right at this point.
Right.
So it takes a while, but once everything clicked for me, I really started getting into it.
I became more invested in the movie when Kringland starts winning at cards. That's when my investment came in to the movie, and that's like roughly about a half hour before the movie ends.
Yeah.
It's very late in the movie where I finally begin to get invested in the characters, and the characters just aren't exposition that is either said by others or said by them. Yeah. It was interesting, but side note real quick, interesting setup for how we set up the predicament of each and every one of the characters at the very beginning with them each on the phone and cuts back and forth so we understand the predicament each and every one of them is in at that moment.
Yeah.
I almost feel like it should have been capped off that way with the surviving characters as well in some way. I mean, I know that person got arrested and the Baron is dead, and Crawford and Barrymore go off to go find a cure for whatever ails him.
Yeah. And then the Gru and Oliver, her entourage, they're trying to get her. It's like, don't let her find out he's dead. Don't let her.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get her to we're going to get her to the train station.
Which is quite a good thing because I think given her state of mental problem before she met the Baron, I don't know if she would belong for the world.
That is the Garbo special.
Yeah.
That really is the Garbo special character. It really is. When you see just these waifish, sad women with sad lives and sad predicaments, and they're always one inconvenience away from killing themselves.
But that is definitely her. But on the plus side, when she was playing just like happy as all get out,
it
was infectious. Her
I can understand.
Her joy was screaming off the skate.
I understand why she was such a huge star at that time. She has a great energy when she is up. She's also, very beautiful. So that's the other thing too. Yeah. But overall, I mean, I felt like the movie, for me at least, took a long time to get going. After Kringland wins the cards, and then the Baron's going to steal his pocketbook. Still getting used to them using that term. My pocketbook. I just got a new pocketbook today. I should jam all my cards in there, and my fax cards. By that point, I had become really invested in there, and I liked that. The last act of the movie is really what hooked me in, because that's when the things fall apart for the Baron, but things come together for
everyone else.
For Kringland. And why can't I remember Joan Crawford's character's name?
Oh, Flimshin,
yeah.
So it seems like it took until the third act to hook you. For me, it was probably the second act. The first act was still, it took a while for that everything to gel, but once the second act kicked in, that's where I'm like, okay, I get it now. I'm in.
Yeah. So
maybe I give it 3.75.
Okay, yeah. I'm sticking with my 3. I've seen better older movies, so this isn't, and it's not an age bias thing.
No, this is what, like 5 years before Citizen Kane.
That would be 37.
Yeah, so 5 years.
Okay, yeah. No, Citizen Kane came out in the 40s.
Did it?
I am pulling it up right now.
No, I believe you. For some reason I was just thinking 30s, right?
1941.
Wow, so 9 years before.
9 years later.
Wow. Because I mean, Citizen Kane is obviously a better movie than this.
Yeah, it is. I mean, 9 years later, and you know what Citizen Kane lost to for Best Picture?
How Green Was My Valley.
Exactly. A movie that is in black and white.
Really?
How Green Was My Valley was shot in black and white. Yes.
I've never seen How Green Was My Valley.
Yeah.
All I know is it stars Roddy McDowell.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it really is. And we're in that era where a lot of it is just it's at Oscar trivia.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, in terms of older movies that I've seen, I mean, but then again, I'm going to like German expressionist because Metropolis is one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah, I definitely don't have as much experience with like 1930s, 1920s movies as you do. But you know, I did enjoy this one a lot.
Yeah,
I'm glad
you enjoyed it. I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it, and that is part of my crusade now is that we don't have to, you know, it's not everything isn't treasure or trash. There is this firm, squishy little middle here of I can like things. You can like things. You, dear viewers, can like things. You don't have to love everything. Yay! Interesting thing too. Got this movie from the library. Came in the old original Warner Brothers DVD packaging.
Ooh.
The snap case. I loved the snap case. Yeah. It sucked for collecting. You couldn't.
No, those they collapsed in on themselves like nobody's business.
Yeah, they collapsed in on themselves. And I mean, the standard case that now like all DVDs are packaged in.
Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, you know what? I have a Warner. Actually, it's a new line snap case right here that I could demonstrate. So for you children here who have never seen an original snap case before, so this is my copy of Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
yeah,
what you do is when you put your movie in there, and then you snap it. The problem is this is exposed cardboard here.
Yeah.
Water gets on it, it's damaged. It also kind of like fills in here, so I can run my finger through there. So DVDs wouldn't like sit properly, which destroys my OCD. I used to manage the Suncoast, as I mentioned 1,000 times before in our show. These things were a nightmare to like put on the shelves. And that's your physical media lesson for the day, kids.
Sorry, he talked about Suncoast, so we have to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a rule.
Didn't bring anything down with me. God damn it.
No, I know I've got some snap cases around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Unless they've been destroyed.
Yeah. I mean, overall, again, I like the movie. I'm glad we watched it. It also gives me an excuse to check this off the list of movies that I've never seen before. Nice. From the Oscar list. And that's really all I can say about that.
Yeah. Music was exactly what you could expect from a 1930s movie.
Exactly. I'm trying to remember, what was the piece that they kept using?
Something oldie in 1930s.
It was a classical piece.
Oh yeah. Hold on. Let me see.
I can't remember what the tune was that they kept playing. But I mean, essentially, it's the same. I mean, it's about present as when anybody uses Olivia and Rose.
Yeah.
now.
Uh, I've got nothing. Music by William Axton, Charles Maxwell, and that's all I got.
1 second.
Apparently, Greta Garbo's got a massive Swedish accent, so a lot of people are like, "Can she do Russian?" Turned out she couldn't, but she looked the part great, so I'm cool with it.
All right, let me see. That's the Grand Hotel musical, TV.
It was remade in 1945 as a movie called Weekend at the Waldorf.
Okay.
And that was actually kind of a more of a comedic type thing, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I honestly I thought this one would be more of a comedy than it was.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like the moments of levity were just that. There were moments of levity.
Yeah. And effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, primarily pulled off by Lionel Barrymore.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really good at physical comedy too.
Oh, he is. I mean, they definitely they definitely cast this movie well.
Yeah, granted, this is like the first movie I've seen John Barrymore in, and only the second movie I've seen Lionel Barrymore in after It's a Wonderful Life, which I do not like.
Yeah, I know.
But in this movie, for me, Lionel Barrymore was definitely the better actor.
Yeah,
I thought John Barrymore was very good and very effective at what he was, but Lionel just gave Kriesling so much depth.
I agree completely. But no, that's all I gotta say about Grand Hotel. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah.
Watch it again whenever I have when I'm on a mission. So we want to know, what are your thoughts on Grand Hotel? First of all, have you seen it? If you haven't seen it, you can rent it on Amazon, video on demand, or do what I did: patronize your local library, folks.
And I will say, the Amazon copy, HD, actually, HD, and it looked clean. It was nice.
Yeah, the DVD looked clean until I was sitting far enough away from it, so it looked really clean.
Yeah.
I had to pause it for I don't remember what reason. And I got up really close to the screen, and it looked grainy from there. But from a distance, it looked fine. So, yeah. Again, there's only so much cleaning up of those things you can do before you completely ruin the effect that was intended in 1932.
Yeah.
That's why, HD does old movies no favors.
Very true. Yeah.
Go to The Wizard of Oz if you need further proof. Those horses totally got painted. Anyway, we want to know, what are your thoughts on Grand Hotel? If you've seen it, leave a polite comment below. If this is your first time joining us, what an odd movie to come join us at, but we're happy that you came. You're an Oscar fan. We are keeping our eyes on the nominees. I am still trying to get my hands on a copy of American Fiction. It's coming to MGM Plus next month, but I think it's after the Oscars. I just got the book Erasure, which I'm reading, which American Fiction is based on. Still got to watch Poor Things. Those are my two priority movies right now. The other stuff I'm sure is going to hit streaming at some point. I don't have Paramount Plus right now, so I can't watch. Oh, good Lord. Not Poor Things. Past Lives. Past Lives is on Paramount Plus, but not Yellowstone season, so I can't watch it. So
I'm not gonna lie, that was the first time I've heard most of those movies.
Yep. I follow it more than you do, but so if you like what you saw here, hit the subscribe button. We do this every week. We have one more week of Oscar coming up next week, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Give this video a big thumbs up as well. It helps us in the algorithm. If you like what you see here, Mike and I host a little podcast called Geek Salad. We do all things nerdy. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts. Our latest episode, which got released on last Friday, our look back at the music of 1994. Part 2 comes out this Friday.
Nice.
So it is all set. It's all edited. It's sitting in the hopper and waiting for Friday to hit. You've got a nice little treat for this weekend. It's a great long episode. We wanted to make up for lost time. And if you want to follow us on the socials, we are at Facebook at Geek Salad Podcast and at Geek Salad Radio on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Threads. I promise at some point I will do better at getting better at Threads and Blue Sky.
Yeah.
But until next time, I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
Go forth and be nerdful.